Patrick Stewart returning for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness to play Professor X has many people excited. Now the producer of Doctor Strange 2 is asking whether we saw or heard what we think we heard, and whether we even know that that's Professor X. So this is another piece of info we recently got from Empire, where the producer of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Richie Palmer, talks a little bit about what fans have sort of built up in their head as what is happening in this film. And Professor X is brought up, specifically Patrick Stewart's version of the character. And his reply to this, he says, and I'll quote the first X-Men movie and say, "Are you sure you saw what you saw?" Which again is leaning into the whole Professor X thing. But then he says that there are infinite versions of these characters. So maybe it's somebody that sounds familiar, that looks familiar, but maybe it's someone you have or haven't seen before because of, well, again, the infinite possibilities that exist. So it's one of those things where I get what he's saying. And let's be real about this one. The X-Men films themselves have 3 to 4 different versions of Professor X. None of them make sense. Quite clearly, the version of Professor X that we get after X-Men 3 that appears in those sequels, starting with, what was it, the ending of the Wolverine, I think? It was the post-credit scene there or something? That cannot be the same character that Patrick Stewart played in the trilogy. And again, if you just look at the First Class trilogy that starts there, that leads up into X-Men 1, that can't be the same Professor X. So again, there's already all sorts of problems with what was going on over there. There was the TV version, which was again completely different. The one that they teased in Gifted, completely different, as opposed to the one in Legion, which was way out there. So again, I get what he's saying. And who's to say that he's saying, hey, are you sure it's the Professor X you think you saw? Because maybe it's not the one that's from, Days of Future Past, but maybe it's the one from Logan. Maybe it's the one from X-Men 2. Again, we just don't know how they're going to play with it. We have literally no idea. So I see what he's saying here in terms of infinite possibilities, because again, we're very accustomed now to variants. And my assumption would also be that maybe, just maybe, they're not going full into the whole, hey, we're going to tell you what happens in this entire X-Men universe you haven't seen yet, or that we're getting back to. Maybe they just tease it, but they don't want you to know everything because who knows what their plans are. And remember, there's still rumors that this version of Professor X could be the animated version in live action, which would be absolutely insane, but hey, who knows, right? So, is it Professor X from the films? Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's a slight variant, we just don't know. And again, go look at those old X-Men films and try to plot through an actual through line of how it's all the same character. It's not. It can't be, because it doesn't make sense. There's literally dialogue in each one of those films that literally goes up against what the other films say. So, maybe they can explain that timeline being so god-awful by saying, yeah, Doctor Strange messing with timeline messed up our timeline.